Hello, my name is Carrie and welcome back to my channel. Today you may be able to tell by the Christmas jumper and the advent calendar and the Santa earrings that I'm bringing you my TBR and recommendations video for the Christmas readathon. So if you're interested in taking part in the Christmas readathon, I'll link my announcement video down below that'll have all the details and an introduction to all the challenges. I will go through the challenges again in this video with some of my suggestions for it, but if you want a briefer video, because this could end up being quite long, there are quite a lot of books here, then go check that one out. You can also check us out on, I've got a Twitter for it, which is, I believe, at Christmas Reads. So go and follow that. I'd love to have you joining me for this Christmas readathon. The basic idea is just to get in the festive spirit with some of the books that we're reading. I have a few suggestions here for each of the challenges, plus what I may or may not read. So if you've been watching my channel, you know I'm terrible at making TBRs and even worse at sticking to them. So I have a lot of options for each challenge because I'm so indecisive and a mood reader that I was just like, I need to give myself a few choices. So hopefully if you have seen the announcement video and you're a bit stuck on what you could read, this might give you some ideas because, as I say, yeah, got a lot of options here. I will just say as well, actually, the dates for the readathon, it's running from the 17th to the 31st of December. I am hoping to do a bit of a vlog, so depending on how much time I have, because I'm still working in most of the Christmas period, I'm going to do a vlog and I will try and upload a couple of times throughout the 2-week period rather than doing just one big video at the end. I will also say as well, actually, I keep thinking of all these things. The idea of this readathon is just to have a bit of fun and get in the Christmas spirit. So interpret these as loosely as you feel comfortable with, and by all means double up where you can. It's a 2-week readathon, there are 7 challenges. So I've got options for all of them, but there are also some books that will work for 2 challenges in case I am running out of time. So on to the books. So the first challenge is Presents, a book that has been given to you. So my TBR for this won't work for you because these are books that are given to me, unless by some coincidence we've been given the same books, which I suppose is possible. So just pick any books that have been given to you, even if you've read them before, or if you've got books on your Christmas wish list, then you can save this towards the end. And so if I get given a book on Christmas Day, then if I haven't already done this challenge, I might use one of those instead. And obviously I don't know until it gets closer what books I might be given for Christmas. But for now I have 4 books here that I've been given that I haven't got around to reading yet that I'm very excited to read, so any one of these might be the one that I pick for that. So the first is my most recent book that I've received. It's called Empire of Sand by Tasha. I won this on a Twitter giveaway. Someone pre-ordered it for me, so it arrived this week and I'm very excited. It is a fantasy novel. I don't know very much about it apart from that I follow the author on Twitter and she seems really cool. It sounds really interesting, so very much looking forward to reading this one. This one is probably top of my list to read for this challenge at the moment, but could all change because on day of filming we are a month away from when this readathon actually starts, so who knows what could happen in that time. The second book that I might read for this I was given for my birthday, so this is called Treveryan, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that, by Angela du Maurier, who is the less famous sister of Daphne du Maurier, who is my all-time favourite author. So we didn't even know she had a sister. My parents saw this they were visiting the West Country and they actually visited Jamaica Inn, which is a real place, which we didn't know, and they were selling this in the gift shop, so my dad got me that for my birthday and I'm quite intrigued. The third book was one I received through Bookish Wish over the summer, and that is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is a retelling of Cinderella, but a kind of science fiction retelling, so quite interested to get into this series. I've heard really good things about this series. And then finally is a book that I was given last year for my birthday, so I've had it for a year and haven't got around to it yet, I'm really sorry. And that is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. So the only Brandon Sanderson I've read so far is the Wheel of Time books that he finished for Robert Jordan, and when one of my friends heard this he was shocked and appalled, so he got me this one for my birthday so that I could try out Brandon Sanderson on his own, so I'm really intrigued to read that one. as I say, I can't help you with recommendations for this challenge because it's all about what books have been given to you. So, challenge number 2 is Nativity, a book written by or featuring a character named Mary, Joseph or Carol. This was actually harder than I was expecting. I've got a small range of books here featuring or written by these people, but as I mentioned, you can be as loose with your interpretation. So Josephine or Caroline or Mario, so long as it vaguely resembles one of those names, I think you're probably safe. So my first book that I might read for this is one that has been on TBR's. It's been on my TBR for ages. It's been on specific Readathon TBRs and I never quite get round to it. So this is called The Counterfeit Guest by Rose Melikan. This is about a character called Mary Finch. This is the second in a series. The first one is called The Blackstone Key. It's historical fiction. Each one in the series has a sort of a mystery that Mary Finch has to try and solve. The first one was about her uncle who has died in mysterious circumstances and she didn't even know she had an uncle, and so she finds out she's his heiress and she's got to go and try and work out what happened to him. This one follows on. I don't really know that much about the particular story of this apart from that it follows on from the first one. The first one I really enjoyed. I read it really quickly, so I've been meaning to get around to this one for ages, and I've got the third one as well, so I really want to try and get through this series soon. My next choice for this one is one that I picked because it would also work for my Read Around the World challenge. So this is called The Bad Girl by Mario Vargas Llosa. So this is, I believe, set in Argentina, and the author, I believe, is Argentinian, so that's a country that I haven't read yet. Again, I don't know very much about this. You can see it's got a protective cover on it. I bought it from a library sale ages ago. Oh, Peru. He's from Peru. I also haven't read a book for Peru, so this one I might choose for that. My next option for this is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, obviously written by someone called Joseph. I know this is considered a classic. I think it was on the BBC's top 10 books of all time when they did that survey. That was a few years ago. So this is one that I've been meaning to get around to for ages again, been on my TBR for a long time. Actually, most of the books I'm going to talk about on this video have been on my TBR for a really long time. Again, I don't know very much about it apart from that it's considered a classic and meant to be very funny. The next one I have is called The Pirate's Daughter, which I'm guessing is about the daughter of a pirate. One of the main characters in it is called Ida Joseph. So Joseph is her surname. That still counts as far as I'm concerned. That's that one. Again, I don't know very much about it because I like to go into books not knowing very much about them. In terms of recommendations for that one, I haven't yet mentioned any books featuring or written by Carol, so my first recommendation is a book written by Carol McGrath called The Woman in the Shadows. This one I read over the summer. It is the story of the wife of Thomas Cromwell, who was an advisor to Henry VIII, and she's called Elizabeth, and it was really interesting insight into sort of more a daily life aspect of Tudor times. So yeah, really enjoyed this book, and so that's one that I would recommend if you like historical fiction. My other recommendation for this challenge is another one for Carol. Well, it's actually Carolyn. So the author is Carolyn Turgeon and the book is Godmother. So I mentioned this in my October wrap-up. I was talking about another of her books called Mermaid, which I didn't particularly enjoy, mainly because I was comparing it to Godmother, which I read a few years ago and really loved. So that is one that you could consider for a book written by or featuring Carol, Mary or Joseph. This was actually really difficult because it's not very often that I know what the characters are called before I read a book, and it's really difficult to remember what characters are called after you've read a book, particularly a book you read a while ago. So I'd be really interested to know what your ideas for this challenge are. In fact, I'd be interested to know what your ideas for any of these challenges are. The next challenge, 'Tis the Season, a book set in the Christmas season, so that's either winter or summer depending on where you live, if you're northern or southern hemisphere, and that is up to you. Even if you live in the northern hemisphere, if you want to read a book set in the summer, you know, set in December, it's up to you. My first choice for this one is a book that I've actually bought recently, but it's one that I've been wanting to read for a long time, and that is Letters from Father Christmas by J.R. Tolkien. This is a collection of, it's kind of a picture book, but every year he would send letters as if they were from Father Christmas to his children. And I've been wanting to get this to read every Christmas for the last couple of years, and so this year I just thought, you know what, I'm going to get it, and this is probably the one that I'll read for this, particularly if I'm running if I'm running out of time or just want to get through one quite quickly, because this, being kind of a picture book, is not very long and it's about 100 pages and quite big print, and it's just a really beautiful looking book, so that's one choice for that one. The first book I thought of when I came up with this challenge is one that I've had for a while. Again, I got it from a library sale. It's called December by Elizabeth H. Winthrop. This is about a little girl who has stopped speaking and her parents don't know why, and it's coming up to Christmas and they're trying to get to the bottom of what has happened to her to make her stop speaking. So this one, it sounds like it could be really good, but it also sounds like it might be a little bit depressing. So I'm in a bit in two minds about whether this will get me into the Christmas spirit or really depress me. But if it has a happy ending, then it would probably be alright, but I don't know obviously until I read it. So that is one option for that. I also like to mix things up a bit, so I've decided to include for this challenge possibly a non-fiction book, because I'm trying to read more non-fiction. I always want to try and read more non-fiction, so, and this one feels particularly appropriate at the moment. So this is Silent Night by Stanley Weintraub, which is, it's about the Christmas truce in the First World War in 1914, where the fighting stopped for a day over Christmas and the soldiers from both sides met together, played football and talked to each other like human beings. For one day in the midst of this horrible period of the First World War. So we've just had the centenary of the end of the First World War, and I was thinking this could be a really poignant book to read this Christmas. And again, it's one I bought from a library sale a few years ago and I've never quite got around to it, so this is one I definitely think I'll consider. One more that I might get to is one that I've also mentioned recently, which is my first ever proof copy. It's called The Walls of Leninsky Prospekt, and it's set in Moscow in Russia, so it's got that sort of cold, wintry setting. It's about spies and it's I've heard really good things, so I'm excited to read this, and I will be doing I will read this soon anyway, and I will be filming a full review of it, but depending on timing I might include this in my readathon. Not entirely sure yet. Hello, future Carrie here with a brief interruption because I had a late addition to my TBR after I filmed the initial video. So about a week after filming this TBR, I received our Ninja Book Club pick for December, which is called Mr. Dickens and His Carol by Samantha Silva. So this is actually now the one I'm most likely to read for my Christmassy themed book set in the Christmas period, because I think it would be really fun to read this with A Christmas Carol. And also it's very helpful because it's our Ninja Book Club pick, so we will be having a book chat about it at the end of the month. So this is an extra one for my TBR and the one I'm most likely to read, and I will return you to past Carrie, who will continue to give you some recommendations of Christmassy books. Bye! So a couple of other suggestions for if you're struggling for a book to fill this challenge. The first one is one that always makes me feel warm and cosy and has a sort of quite wintry setting, and that is The Lion, the Witch of the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia. Obviously in this book the White Witch has cast a spell on Narnia, which means that it's always winter but never Christmas, and then with the arrival of Aslan they start to move towards a thaw. And so that is, if you again want a quite quick read, if you've never read Narnia or you love Narnia as much as I do and you want to reread this, so you can definitely use that one to meet this challenge. And the other two books are both ones that have winter in the title, because I was slightly rushing at this point because I wanted to get on to actually filming this video. So we've got The Winter Ghost by Kate Mosse. This is set in the south of France, I think in the 1920s, so shortly following the end of the First World War. And it's about a young man who's travelling around the south of France and has a bit of a car accident and finds himself in a cave where he seems to meet people that are from a previous century, but it's set in winter, and I remember it being really good. So again, I think quite sad. I think it was quite sad in places, this one. If you like that sort of sad wintry read, then you might enjoy that one. And the other one I've got is one again that Oh, quite a lot of war-themed books today. This is Winter in Madrid, which is about the Spanish Civil War. It's set in 1940. It's been a while since I read this, so I don't remember a lot about it other than that. It's about Harry, who is a spy, and he is in the midst of things in the Spanish Civil War, and I remember it being really, really good. I'm going to maybe try and speed up a bit. Challenge number 4 is Santa's Helper, a book featuring elves, fairies or angels. So the fun thing about planning your own readathon is that you can come up with challenges based on books you want to read, which I definitely did for this challenge. I even extended it. So initially it was just elves and fairies, and then I read the first book in Laini Taylor's Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy and decided to add angels on there so that I could include Days of Blood and Starlight on my TBR for this, because this series is about angels and chimera and other mythical beings. But yeah, it definitely features angels. The first book was just beautiful. I love Laini Taylor's writing. She's quickly become one of my favourite authors. So this is one that I will probably get to. I know I'll read it very quickly. But also for this one, if I have a lot of time, if I get through all the other books quite quickly, then one book that I really want to get around to that I've had for a while and have been meaning to get to is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is a real chunk of a book. I think it's about 1,000 pages. So this is the TV tie-in edition. They did a really good adaptation a couple of years ago on the BBC, and I've been wanting to read the book ever since. So this features fairies, but not necessarily the type of fairies that you may have come across before. So this is one I'm really looking forward to read, and hopefully I'll have time to get onto this for the readathon. Though it's going to be a hard choice to pick between those two. In terms of recommendations for this, I don't actually have that many because I realised I haven't read a lot of books with angels, elves or fairies in them. So I do recommend The Daughter of Smoke and Bone if you haven't read that one yet, and if you want to get into Laini Taylor's writing. And the other book I could think of that has elves in was The Lord of the Rings, so if you've never read that or if you want to reread that, that is a good recommendation for a book featuring elves. I also, for fairies, I have been working my way through a collection of Grimm's fairy tales, so I might dip in and out of this one to meet that challenge if I don't have a lot of time, but I probably won't finish that whole book because I've been reading it for about 6 months. I manage maybe one story a week, but there is quite a lot of crossover between this challenge and the next one. So challenge number 5 is Pantomime, a fairy tale retelling. So if you are not from the UK, you might not have come across Pantomime. It is essentially, it's a musical theatre show. Generally they're based on fairy tales. I think they all are, apart from maybe Dick Whittington, which I'm not sure if it counts as a fairy tale or not, I don't know. So there's a bit of crossover there between a book containing fairies or a fairy tale retelling. So for this challenge, it's quite easy to do that crossover and have a book that meets both those challenges. So one book that I might read for this one I've already mentioned, which is Cinder. So this is, as I said, a retelling of Cinderella. I know it's a science fiction one, so I don't know if it features fairies or not until I read it, but this one I can use to double up on those challenges if I need to. I'm very loosely interpreting this as well as just being here's my own readathon and I'm already breaking the rules. So a couple of the things that I might include for this are very loosely termed as fairy tale retelling. So one is Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. This is one I've wanted to read for a really long time. It is a retelling, but not of a fairy tale. It's a retelling of the myth of Cupid and Psyche. So, not quite a fairy tale, but if I'm feeling like a rule breaker, I might read that one. And this readathon is all about, well, all readathons are just about like reading more books, aren't they? So for me, it's about getting through some stuff on my TBR. So yeah, if you want to interpret this really loosely to be any retelling, then I'm okay with that, obviously. And the other one is actually another one that I'm thinking about for this one would be a reread for me, but it's been a really long time since I read it. And then, again, it's not, I would say it's a fairy tale, but not necessarily a retelling. So that's The Princess Bride by William Goldman. While this might not technically be a fairy tale retelling, it does have that sort of fairy tale feel to it. So yeah, so I might read that one. A couple of other books that I might use for this one are collections of fairy tale retelling. So I've got The Bloody Chamber by, what's her name? Angela Carter. So I've heard really good things about this collection. So these are all feminist retellings, I believe, of classic fairy tales. And this is Rags and Bones, which is a collection by various authors of fairy tale retellings, but all with a bit of an unexpected twist to them. So these are two things that I might dip into for my fairy tale retellings, depending on my mood, because I'm a mood reader, as I said. So other suggestions I have for this one, again, I realised that I don't actually read a lot of retellings, which I'm very sad about, and I need to read more. So I'm really interested to see what ideas you guys have for this challenge, so let me know if you have any other suggestions. One I've already mentioned you could read is Godmother by Carolyn Turgeon. So that is a retelling of Cinderella, but from the point of view of the fairy godmother. It's quite a loose retelling, it's very unexpected. I really loved it and I really want to reread it. I borrowed it from a friend, so I might have to invest in my own copy so I can reread it soon. Another book that you could consider, again it's fairly loosely as a retelling, but that's The Siren by Kira Cass. So it's very loosely could be called a retelling of The Little Mermaid. It's about Carolyn, who's a siren who falls in love with a human. I love this cover. All the Kira Cass books just have really beautiful covers. So I really enjoyed this. I read it a couple of years ago. I would say as well, you could probably get away with reading any books from the Selection series by Kira Cass for your fairy tale retelling if you wanted to, because they are all very loosely based on the idea of Cinderella. As Kira Cass has said, all Cinderella wanted was a night off in a pretty dress, and she ended up marrying a prince. So that was where the root of the idea for the Selection series came from. So I would say that counts as a fairy tale retelling as well, if you wanted to. So the last two challenges are a lot harder to give recommendations for because they are, well, one is more specific and one is less. The sixth challenge is A Christmas Carol, and that is read A Christmas Carol and or watch your favourite adaptation. So I will be trying to do both. I have this Dickens collection which has A Christmas Carol in it. I have read it a couple of years ago, but it is a story that I enjoy, so I will probably try and reread this. In terms of my favourite adaptation, there's only one winner for this for me, and that is The Muppet Christmas Carol. This is my favourite Christmas film as well, so I watch this every Christmas, and I'm looking forward to watching it again this Christmas as part of this readathon. There are tons of adaptations though of A Christmas Carol, so I'm sure there'll be lots on over the Christmas period as well. Just keep an eye out on your TV for that, or on Netflix or whatever. I think there's one called, I was trying to think of specific names of ones and I can't remember, but there is definitely a film called The Ghost of Girlfriends Past, something like that, with Matthew McConaughey in it, which I remember watching, and it was, I'm sure that's based on A Christmas Carol. I might have to look that up. But yeah, there's always loads of adaptations of that book going around. I think there was a recent one called A Christmas Carol, which is an animation one as well. So quite easy to find that, but I mean the best one obviously is The Muppet Christmas Carol. And finally, challenge 7 is Yolla Book of Flood, which is give someone else a book and spend some of Christmas Eve reading. So the spending some of Christmas Eve reading part is relatively straightforward for that, and giving someone else a book, it is again fairly self-explanatory, but there are lots of options for this. So this could be someone that you were buying a gift for anyway, buy them a book. So I often buy my dad books for Christmas. I haven't decided what I'm getting him this year yet, so I might do that. Or you could do some sort of giveaway. If you are on Twitter, there are often Twitter giveaways going around, and you could offer to grant someone's Christmas bookish wish. This was one thing I was considering, but since then I've signed up for 2 book exchanges. So my giving a book is going to be covered by both of. The first one I'm doing is the BookTube Secret Santa, so I've been assigned another booktuber to buy gifts for, so that's very exciting. I also have signed up for the Ninja Book Box Christmas book swap. So this year they are focusing on books from one particular publisher called Persephone. So I've not actually read any books published by Persephone yet, so I'm quite excited about this one. They focus on publishing books by forgotten 20th century female writers. They have quite an extensive catalogue, so it took me ages to decide which books to put on my Persephone wish list, and I'm really looking forward to getting involved in that gift exchange as well. Yeah, so that's my TBR for my Christmas readathon. I really hope you'll get involved. I've had a few people say to me that they're interested. I wasn't sure about whether to do it this year or not because I'm such a small channel that I wasn't sure if anyone would even hear about it. But a few of my Twitter followers have said they're up for it. So I'd love to know what you plan to read. So if you have a booktube channel and you want to make a TBR video, please let me know. Either link it down below or tweet me the link and I'll retweet it. Or if you are just on Twitter or you have a blog or anything else and you come up with your TBR, again, just send me the link or use the @ChristmasReads to tag the readathon in it, or you can use the hashtag #ChristmasReadathon as well. I'll retweet that too. So I'm really excited to hear what you all are planning to read for this readathon and what ideas you have for who you might give books to as well, although of course you don't want to give that away before Christmas maybe and spoil their surprise. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Get involved in the readathon and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!